Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Dr. Barlow Der Mugrdechian. He is the director of the Armenian Studies Program at Fresno State. Dr. Der Mugrdechian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be here.
You're here in Armenia to take part in a conference. Actually, it's the 40th anniversary of the Armenian Studies Program, and you're holding the conference, I guess, in conjunction with the National Academy of Sciences. Tell me, Armenian Studies, 40 years, that's quite a milestone.
It's the organization, actually, the Society for Armenian Studies, that's celebrating its 40th anniversary. We look back in America, the beginnings of Armenian Studies was sometime in the 1950s when chairs, the concept of chairs were set up. So on the 40th anniversary for our SAS, we wanted to do a special conference, and we decided to do it in Armenia in order to really make the ties closer between the scholars in both countries and outside of the United States too. It's Europe and also in other places.
Right, and the conference, I was looking over the program, it's not about anything specifically, for example, about the genocide. It's about Armenian history, Armenian literature, art.
It reflects the disciplines and the interests of our scholars. So basically we had a sort of, you call for papers, and then anyone that has an idea that they want to do, they send in an abstract, and then we had a committee select the papers, and then based on that we set up the conference.
And you will also be presenting a paper called The Theme of Genocide in Armenian American Literature, I think tomorrow.
Right, on Sunday actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's reflecting, it looks at the Armenian American writers in the United States and how they've touched on the theme of genocide and when that started, and then how it's developed over the years and how it's changed.
Well, we are heading now into the centennial of the Armenian Genocide. 2015 promises to be perhaps a watershed, perhaps not. There will be increased media attention. Many Armenian communities, or all Armenian communities around the world, including Armenia, will be commemorating the 100th anniversary. Is anything going to change, in your opinion? Will we see Turkey coming to grips with its history? Will we see Turkey moving closer towards recognition?
I think it's already started, and I see it more as a process than as one particular year, although of course the 100th anniversary is very important, and there's going to be a lot of things I think that will be important in that year, but it's not the end of the whole process. So there's a whole series of events that have to take place, not only acknowledgement or recognition of the genocide, and then, so what do you do once you've said that? Is that enough, or do you need to do something more about it?
Yeah, and that leads into my next question. We've been having these conversations here at CivilNet about the 100th anniversary, about recognition, and about potential reparations. And what is it that we as a nation, we as individual Armenians, we as descendants of survivors of the Armenian Genocide, what is it that we expect from Turkey? Some are now arguing that recognition is no longer something that, the international recognition of the Armenian Genocide is not something that we should be pursuing so aggressively. We should now shift the discourse toward what is Turkey going to do about it? Because I think that for Armenians and for many people and for several countries in the world, it is no longer an issue that needs to be discussed by historians. It is a fact, we acknowledge it. Now what? What is it that we expect, and how do we move forward? What kind of platforms do we create to have this discussion?
Well, the genocide is in many ways a historical issue and a political issue. And of course, now you're talking about the political issue. And there's complicated parts to it, because it's who speaks for the Armenians. I mean, who does have the voice that's going to sit down at the table with the Turkish government, and who has the right to do that? And then, of course, the questions then come to, so what is it that you want? What are the reparations? And it can be very broad or it can be very narrow, but I think there's some things you can start with very easily. I think church properties and things like that are very easy in the sense of identifying them. And then, of course, there are many other levels that you could move to.
If you had the power to be the person sitting at the negotiating table, what is it that you think would be commensurate with what took place? What is it that you, as an Armenian, as a scholar, as a descendant of survivors, somebody who was born in North America, not of your choice, but because of historical currents that took place in your family's history, what would you want? What would you expect? What is the realistic expectation?
I can only speak for myself.
Absolutely.
Because that's really, you know, the issue that I was talking about. I think some acknowledgement or some ability to be able to live freely in Turkey, to be able to settle there if you wanted to, and maybe not so many people would want to do that, but at least to have that freedom of
the right of return. Almost.
Right of return, yeah. I think right of return is one. The ability to be able to, for people that had lands and properties which were taken away, to some sort of reparations for that. I think the religious freedom would be very important. But I see it has to be really a big change in the Turkish social system. I mean, the way that they look at Armenians, and I say they, meaning not only people but the government, that has to really come first almost, because it almost doesn't make sense if they say you can do something, you know, you can go live there, but then if it's going to be intolerable, I don't think that's what we're looking for.
You know, we've interviewed and met with many citizens of Turkey who do want their government to recognize the Armenian genocide. They very publicly acknowledge that the modern Turkish Republic was founded on the ruins of the Armenian nation. And for there to be the eradication of impunity in Turkey, for there to be the establishment of human rights, and most importantly, democracy and social justice. They feel that it's very important for their country to recognize the Armenian genocide. So there is this movement in Turkey, albeit very small, of a very small segment of society who is pushing this issue forward. Now, coupled with that, on April 23, 2013, at the time Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan issued a letter to the Armenian people. And I was there in Istanbul when that letter was issued, and people were very cautiously optimistic. So that, coupled with the movement that we were seeing, would make one quite optimistic. Now, on the other hand, we just found out, but that on April 24, 2015, the government of Turkey is planning on commemorating the Battle of Gallipoli at a very, very high state level. They're inviting heads of states from all over the world. Many see this, and again, I'm asking you a political question. I realize that, you know, you are a historian, but somebody who was very closely following the processes. Many see this as a way for the Turkish government to veer attention away from the genocide commemoration and then present it as the Battle of Gallipoli.
Well, I think it may actually have the opposite effect too, though. Actually, if you're bringing so much attention to that day, I think most people are aware of what happened and what April 24th means for the Armenians. So in a sense, you're bringing extra attention to it as the Battle of Gallipoli. So it's again, I think, something that the Turkish people understand, that the government is the one that's really blocking any progress. So I don't see that that's going to make a big difference for them to do that. I think, you know, they're putting a lot of resources. They want to try to veer away attention from the genocide. But by moving it to April 24th, I think it's only going to really put more emphasis on it. In a funny kind of way. In a funny kind of way.
Yeah. And as a final question, what should we be doing as Armenians in the diaspora, as the Republic of Armenia, to bring more attention to the centennial of the genocide?
Well, I think most of the events that are taking place will bring a high level of attention. I think it depends, again, what you really want to do. If your goal, and if the goal is political, then I think we need to make sure that we have activities that bring that attention to the Armenian genocide. And there's film is a great way of doing things. In the popular mentality, scholarly works we've had conferences. Those things we'll always have, and we'll have more of them. But I think each has a role to play. So I think overall, it's just having this sort of plan to be able to put it together and really focus on what happened, and then show it as a way to move forward as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time between lectures to come and talk to us today. Good luck with the conference.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll see another 40 years of fruitful Armenian studies.
Yes.
Not only in North America, but all over the world, and here in Armenia as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was Dr. Barlow Der Mugrdechian. He is the chair of the Armenian Studies Program at Fresno State. Stay with CivilNet.